Hey, guess what? The Senate voted for final congressional okay for the $40 billion Ukraine aid.
Oh.
What a relief.
I can exhale.
Ah, I was afraid they wouldn't get their fleecing. Again, just keep in mind how much money that is. The entire recording industry, music recording industry in the United States generates $12 billion a year. They're giving $40 billion to you. The entire recording, no matter what, from Beethoven to Frank Sinatra to Snoop Dogg to whoever is popular today. Is it Blake? Am I right? Rihanna? Are they still popular? I don't even know. Cardi B? Wet ass. Bleh.
They're not as popular as, they're not as big a hit as Ukraine, am I right?
No way. So no, all that money is only $12 billion. They just sent $40 billion to Ukraine aid. That could end homelessness in America. We could have did it. We could have ended homelessness. But instead, we decided to send that money to Raytheon and Boeing and Booz Allen so they could put that billions of dollars in their pocket. The Senate overwhelmingly approved a $40 billion infusion of military and economic aid for Ukraine and its allies on Thursday as both parties rallied behind America's latest and quite possibly not last financial salvo against the Russian invasion. The 86-11 vote in the Senate. Guess what? You think the 11 was Bernie Sanders? No.
Who was it?
They're all
Marjorie Taylor Greene or something.
No, these are senators. These are all Republicans, though. The 86-11 vote gave final congressional approval to the package 3 weeks after President Biden requested a smaller $33 billion version, and after a lone Republican opponent delayed Senate passage for a week. That was Rand Paul. Every Democrat and all but 11 Republicans, every Democrat and every Republican save 11, many of them supporters of former Donald Trump's isolationist agenda, backed the measure.
It's isolationist agenda.
So every Democrat and all but 11 Republicans. So the 11 Republicans voting against this were supporters of Trump's isolationist agenda. Is that how you read that? That's how I read that, right? It's written a little awkwardly, but I think that's what they mean. Biden's
no, many of that. Wait. Well, they're just saying they weren't all supporters of Trump, is how I read. Many of them supporters.
So, but many of these 11.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That they weren't saying many of the 86. They're saying many of the 11 who voted against it. That's what I was talking about. Biden's quick signature was certain as Russia's attack, which has mauled Ukraine's forces and cities, slogs into a fourth month with no obvious end ahead. That means more casualties and destruction in Ukraine, which has relied heavily on U.S. and Western assistance for its survival, especially advanced arms, with requests for more aid potentially looming. We're going to give money to Ukraine, but we're not going to give money to the United States American people who are sleeping under every bridge in every city. This is amazing.
We got to fund more evacuations as their missions complete.
Yes, that's right. Help is on the way. Really significant help. Help that could make sure that the Ukrainians are victorious. That is never going to happen. The Ukrainians are never going to be victorious in Ukraine. Just so you know. And who said that? Chuck Schumer said that. We got to help Ukraine be victorious. All the enthusiasm for helping another country's people. Why if there's any enthusiasm for, well, if we could bomb our cities in America, then we would be funding that. We would fund the shit out of that because then Raytheon and Boeing could make all that money. And those are the ones that's who's doing this, you dummies. Why do you think Chuck Schumer wants to do this? Because he's being told to by his donors. That's why they're doing this. Look at all $40 billion. That's more than 3 times as much as the entire recording music industry makes in a year. You know how much power that gives you? $40 billion.
Do you know, did you watch the reports on, with Afghanistan of how, it fell immediately and they thought it was going to take like way longer to fall?
Yeah, it took like 5 seconds.
Because no one was allowed to say this isn't going to work out. Like you weren't, because that's being negative.
Yeah.
Like where's your positive winner at it, So So the same reporters, by the way, talking about that are looking at this and not connecting it.
That's correct. Well, help is on the way. Really significant help. Help that could make sure that the Ukrainians are victorious. That's Chuck Schumer saying that. The vote was a glaring exception to the partisan divisions that have. So they're not. The Republican and Democrats are only divided on pretend issues. They're not divided on important issues like $40 billion to Ukraine or screwing the American workers. Or keeping us from health care. They're on board for all that. Or keeping the minimum wage down. The Democrats and Republicans agree on all this stuff. They agree on this. This vote was a glaring exception to the partisan divisions, the pretend, phony, surface level partisan divisions that have hindered work on other issues under Biden that promise to become only less bridgeable as November's elections for control of Congress draw closer. That includes Republicans blocking Democrats from including billions to combat the relentless pandemic in the measure, leaving really because Joe Biden just told the cities to take some of that $1.9 trillion COVID relief fund and give the rest of it to the cops. So the AP is doing their own propaganda here. Of course they are. Oh, really? The Democrats wanted to have more COVID relief? Well, why did Joe Biden just say give all that COVID relief to the cops? So this is a bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats all voted for this. And as George Carlin reminds us, the word bipartisan usually means some larger than usual deception is being carried out. And that's what's being carried out right now. This is them pretending that we're helping the Ukrainian people. This is nothing but a fleecing of the American people and a direct giveaway. This is a wealth transfer to the military-industrial complex and to the most corrupt country in Europe, which is Ukraine. Last week, the House approved the Ukraine bill 368 to 57, with all of those who opposed were Republicans. Now, I pointed this out, that the only people who are anti-war right now in government are Republicans. And so for me pointing that out, people were saying that I was standing for the Republicans. But I'm sorry.
You're standing for Trump isolationism.
Yeah. Whoa. Though support in both chambers was unmistakably bipartisan, the GOP defections were noteworthy after Trump, still a potent force in the party, complained that such sums should first be targeted at domestic problems.
Oh my God, he said some bad things before, but this one...
Wow, this is disgusting. He wants to help Americans first before we give $40 billion to a pretend proxy war in Ukraine?
Well, it would be less offensive if he talked about grabbing people's pussies than saying
yes,
this
no
trash.
Kidding. So this is when Trump is further left than Bernie Sanders. You see how fucked up it is to vote Democrat? When a guy like Trump can out-left the entire Democratic Party, including Bernie Sanders. That's how bad things are. And now you know why you have to stop voting for Republicans and Democrats. Now you know. Schumer called it beyond troubling that Republicans were opposing the Ukraine assistance. It appears more and more that MAGA Republicans are on the same soft on Putin playbook that we saw used by former President Trump, Schumer said.
The soft on Putin playbook?
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, a strong backer of the measure, addressed concerns by his GOP colleagues. He said Ukraine's defeat would jeopardize Americans' European trading partners. That's bullshit. That's just bullshit. Increased U.S. security costs there and embolden autocrats in China and elsewhere to grab territory in their regions.
I mean, not as much as doing business with Ukraine does, but I guess...
Yeah. So do you see this? This is called imperialism. This is called we're supposed to run the world. This is called imperialism. And they just say it right out in the open. And there wasn't one Democrat who will stand up to Mitch McConnell. There's not one Democrat will stand up to any of the Democrats are the ones doing this.
Isn't Mitch McConnell married to the daughter of a Chinese like oligarch or something. Like whose family owns all like the.
I don't know. I don't know what her origin is, but I know she was in government or so. I don't know what her origin is. I don't. His wife. So I don't want to speculate without knowing. And so that's what this is. The most expensive and painful thing America could possibly do in the long run would be to stop investing in sovereignty, stability, and deterrence before it's too late.
Oh, in another country.
In another country, he means.
Not here.
Not here. We're a failed state, Jimmy. This is an end stage of an empire. We're going to invest in another country. Can you imagine if they invested $40 billion in America? They gave $1 billion to each city in America. The top 20 cities gets $2 billion. That would solve homelessness.
You know, somebody who had a narcissist parent that would like not raise or pay attention to, but would go out and find like disadvantaged kids to like spoil.
No.
Yeah, it's a very common like liberal thing if you got the money to do it.
On Wednesday, Schumer said he was not confident this would be the final measure to help Ukraine. No, they're going to spend more money. They're going to spend more money on Ukraine while they spend nothing on you. They're doing the fighting. They're the ones getting killed. They're the ones struggling and suffering. The least we can do is give them the weaponry they need. The least we could do is transfer money from our treasury to this national security state. The legislation contains around $24 billion for weapons, equipment, and military financing for Ukraine, restoring Pentagon stocks of arms sent to the region and paying for U.S. reinforcements sent there. The rest includes economic aid to keep Zelensky's government functioning, food programs for the countries that rely on Ukraine's diminished crop production, and refugee assistance and funds for Kiev to investigate Russian war crimes. Congress approved an initial $13.6 billion measure in March. The combined price tag is nearly $54 billion. That exceeds what the U.S. spent on all its foreign and military aid in 2019, according to the nonpartisan subsidies. Oh, so you want to see something? So we're spending all this money in Ukraine. Here's RFK. I don't think it's RFK Jr. This is RFK.
Just about completed the second day now. Is there anything significant that you've learned in this trip?
Well, people are still having a very, very difficult time. There is hunger, considerable hunger in this part of the country. There's no real hope for the future amongst many of these people who worked hard at coal mines, and now that the coal mines shut down, they have no place to go. There's no hope for the future. There's no industry moving in. The men are trained in government programs, and there's no jobs at the end of the training program because of the cutback, because of the demands on our federal budget in Washington, the war in Vietnam. Even these training programs are being cut back, and so people are being cut off, and they have no place to turn, and so they're desperate. And
so we're funding another war, and we couldn't fund our own poor people here at home with jobs. That it never changes. It never changes. Watch what he says at the end.
And filled with despair. It seems to me that this country, as wealthy as we are, this is an intolerable condition. It reflects on all of us. We can do things all over the rest of the world, but I think we should do something for our people here in our own country.
He's a Trumper?
Sounds like a Trumper. We could do things all over the world, but I think we should do things for people in our own country. Sounds like a Trumper.
I mean, as long as we're taxing them for out of their money.
And every member of the squad and Bernie Sanders is going along with this. So you're a chump if you keep voting Democrat. And you're a chump if you keep watching shows that tell you to keep voting Democrat. Because those people don't even fucking believe it themselves. They don't even believe it themselves, Kurt.
I like the money for Kiev to investigate war crimes.
Yeah.
Who's going to do it? The ghost of Kiev.
You want to know what Russia spends on their entire military? $65.9 billion.
Well, maybe if they gave some of that to Ukraine, they wouldn't be in this mess.
Yeah. Senator Ted Cruz said that the costly as the measure is, this $40 billion, which is actually $54 billion, the aid will protect the United States national security.
State. Just say it.
Right?
He forgot to say state.
He forgot to say state. If Putin wins, the consequences for America and American taxpayers will be hundreds of billions of dollars. He's just making shit up. They're just making shit up. Senator Mitt Romney, Republican of Utah, he said he's a moderate. They call him a moderate, who has clashed with Trump, said in an interview that helping Ukraine defend itself is about as smart an investment as we could possibly make.
The only better investment I can think of is investing in Hunter Biden to run your energy company, to sit on the board of an energy company.
And that's not going to, if you tweeted that out, that wouldn't get taken down for misinformation, even though it is. He added, what does America first mean? It means that we should first fix Ukraine. I guess that's what he's saying. He goes, that we should first be concerned about the interests of America. No, that's not what it means. What it means is we should fucking take care of America. Not spend our money on wars around the globe.
So one of the interests of America is not actually America itself?
No, we don't have... That's right. Helping people in America, not an American interest. Huh. Very well put, Kurt. That's good catch. Ryan Knight, second appearance on today's show, he tweets out, the Democrats just unanimously voted to give $40 billion of weapons to Ukraine, and the U.S. government doesn't really know what will happen with these weapons. This is insane, especially when Ukraine has a neo-Nazi battalion. You all have blood on your hands. So they don't even know where these weapons are going. They don't even know. What happens to weapons sent to Ukraine? The U.S. doesn't really know. They don't know. Biden and the Democrats should be calling for a peace negotiations, not escalating and prolonging the war by sending $40 billion in weapons. But peace doesn't line the pockets of U.S. weapons manufacturers, which is the only thing these warmongering Democrats care about. That is exactly right. Hey, Garland Nixon, he's got it. He goes, the good news, Biden administration found the money to repair 220,000 bridges and tunnels in the U.S. The bad news, they're going to give it to goose-stepping Nazis in Ukraine instead. Aaron Matze caught it. He says the New York Times editorial board, usually a reflexive supporter of U.S. militarism, is realizing that shunning diplomacy to escalate a proxy war with a nuclear power is not a good idea. Bernie Sanders and the squad should read this before approving their next $40 billion. If you can vote for those people after they did this, you're not a lefty. You're just a dumb fucking willing sheep who's propping up a pro-war party. If you can vote for the Democrats, for Bernie Sanders or anybody in the squad who voted for this, and you think you're fucking lefty or progressive, you're not. You're just a willing dupe, a sheep who is supporting a pro-war, anti-worker party. That's all you're doing. And Bernie Sanders and the squad are there to keep you voting for that fucking party while they do absolutely nothing. Nothing to help you except tweet. There it is. The war in Ukraine is getting complicated, and America isn't ready. Tulsi Gabbard says this. She goes, as the American people struggle with rising gas prices and inflation, the permanent Washington establishment rushed to send $40 billion to Ukraine without defining what winning is or how this ends. They'd rather serve the interests of the military-industrial complex than the American people. Now, where is AOC's tweet? I remember there were lefty YouTube hosts and things saying that AOC and Bernie were the future of the foreign policy and blah, blah, blah. And what we do overseas is our foreign policy is domestic policy. Remember that shit? Where's AOC now? Where's AOC now? Why is it only Tulsi Gabbard saying this shit? Where's AOC now? Where's Ro Khanna? Where's Pramila Jayapal?
I think they're pretty clear that this is what winning is.
That's right.
It never ends.
Where's Bernie Sanders? Well, as Michael Tracy says, Bernie Sanders just voted yes on funding the U.S. proxy war in Ukraine to the tune of $40 billion. So now it's officially on the record that every national politician associated with the activist left is completely on board with escalating the war. That's what the left is now. And you're not a lefty if you support this shit. You call yourself what you are. You vote right wing. You vote pro-war. You vote pro-war. If you're voting Democrat, you're voting pro-war. That's just a fact. By the way, we're always being lectured to respect the agency of Ukraine. But if it's true what Ted Cruz says, that they'll collapse if the U.S. doesn't send another $40 billion, which is what he said, then it seems like Ukraine doesn't have much agency after all. Seems more like a U.S. vassal state. Exactly.
I mean, wouldn't bailing out another corrupt bank be a better investment?
Right?
In this? Like a more trustworthy use of the money.
Here's a Republican congressman, and he says, "I'm wondering when we voted to go to war, because they didn't. If we're going to have a proxy war and we're going to give $40 billion to Ukraine because we want to look all fancy with our blue and yellow ribbons and feel good about ourselves, maybe we should actually have a debate in this chamber." So that's only coming from the Republicans. That's how despicable the Democratic Party is. That's how corrupt they are, that they're now worse than the Republicans on war. Isn't that amazing? That should be amazing. That should shock your conscience.
I think maybe he should put down the soft on Putin playbook.
Okay. So what's supposed to happen is the progressives are supposed to build a coalition with Republicans like this to stop the war. No, they're just letting Republicans do this. That's it. The only anti-war voice in national government now is Republican. And Trump is the one pushing for peace in Ukraine. And even Chomsky acknowledged that. It's crazy what's happening right now. And then there's some people out there, Kurt, who want to make me the story. That somehow Jimmy Dore is bad because he's acknowledging how bad things are.
You're hurting this family. Dad's just tired. He's not drunk.
So there you go. Keep voting for them, you're a sucker. Hey, I'm on tour. Come see me in Irvine, California, Las Vegas, Indianapolis, Salt Lake City, Washington. Washington? You mean Washington State?
Yes.
Yes. Go to JimmyDoreComedy.com for a link for all those tickets.